Mark shares with us the last teachings that Jesus delivered from the temple. Jesus warns against the teachers of the law and the Pharisees and compares their hypocrisy with the love and faith of the widow's offering. We can read this in Mark 12, verses 38 to 44. Also in Matthew 23, 136, in Luke 20, 45 to 47, also in Luke 21, 1 to 4. There's plenty of information about these last teachings from the Lord before he leaves the temple. Here is the first part of the gospel for today. Jesus warns against hypocrisy of the teachers of the law, the scribes, and also the Pharisees. As he taught them, he said, watch out for the teachers of the law, who like to walk around in their long robes and be greeted with respect in the marketplace, who chooses the reserved seats in the synagogues and the best places at feasts. They take advantage of widows and rob them of their homes, and then make a show of saying long prayers. Their punishment will be all the worst. You have a picture of the Pharisees, kind of reacting to what Jesus was saying. And, their garments were kind of luxurious, and the long robes and everything to be noticed. You have the picture more or less of what they look like. They were basically the scribes, the ones that wrote legal documents, and also their job was to teach the law because they were experts in the law. This is the second part of the gospel for today. The widow's offering. It looks like what it's got to do with the first part, but it is. It's right after the other part. As Jesus sat near the temple treasury, he watched the people as they drop in their money. Many rich men drop in a lot of money, Then a poor widow came along and dropped in 2 little copper coins. They were worth about a penny right now, both of it. There was the least of the coins in those times. Very little value. He called his disciples together and said to them, I tell you that this poor widow put more in the offering box than all of others. For the others put in what they had to spare of their riches. But she, poor as she is, put in all she had. She gave all she had to live on. Let's see. This is a poor widow placing a couple of copper coins in the box of the offerings, and there is Jesus observing what is happening. You have a picture of the coins from that epoch, that era. Yeah, the ones on the left are the copper coins that had very little value. Very little value. This is the real stuff. This is a picture of coins that have been found from the time of Jesus. They constructed the gospel to find the central characters, facts, items, and activities. Jesus warned the people against the arrogant, self-centered, and dishonest behavior of some of the teachers of the law, the scribes, and also some of the Pharisees, and reproached them because of taking advantage of their privileged occupations. for seeking undue admiration and respect from the people that they were supposed to serve. Jesus called them hypocrites, making a show of saying long prayers while taking advantage of widows, robbing them of their homes. Yeah, Jesus called them hypocrites, not in Mark, but in Matthew. In the Gospel according to Matthew. And the Lord further declared that their punishment will be all the worst. This is about the first part. And then the Lord compare, in the second part of the Gospel today, compare the self-centered attitude and deceitfulness of some of the teachers of the law and Pharisees with the love and faith of the poor widow who dropped in the offering box of the temple treasury all she had, everything, 2 little copper coins. Jesus told them that the poor widow put more in the offering box than all the others because she gave all she had to live on. This gospel, the Lord is teaching us, and we should be able to understand and identify at least 5 important teachings. This number 1, Jesus recognized in the first part of the gospel something very wrong from some of the teachers of the law and some of the Pharisees that everybody else overlooked. They were not paying attention to that. They were overlooking that. So Jesus is going to do something. These scribes, some scribes at least, perhaps not all, and some of the Pharisees were in clear desecration, violation of the 2 most important commandments of the law. You remember which are the 2 most important commandments? They were looking to be served with honors, respect, and admiration from the people that they were supposed to work for and serve as teachers of the law. That was a job. That job was perfectly aligned with the 2 most important commandments, not what they were doing. They were in charge to teach the people to love and serve only God about anything or anybody else, including themselves, and also to love their neighbors as they loved themselves. To make things worse, some of them were taking advantage of widows, robbing them of their homes, and then making a show of saying long prayers. Okay. Can you imagine the dishonesty of some people doing that? The Lord told them that their punishment will be all the worst. All the worst. Teaching number 2, we may need to remember that when Jesus was asked, teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Remember a couple of Sundays away? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest and the most important commandment. But he didn't stop there. He said, the second most important commandment is like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. The whole law of Moses and the teaching of the prophets depend on these 2 commandments. Matthew 22, 36, 40. The meaning of these 2 commandments is that our duty to love and serve the only God have been fundamentally connected from the beginning to also love and serve our neighbors. These 2 commandments, the law said that the whole law of Moses and the teaching of the prophets depend on these two commandments. So we need to pay attention to this. They were not paying attention to that, even though they were supposed to be the teachers of the law and teach that to the people. They were looking something for themselves only. Teacher number 3, recognize in the second part of the gospel something extraordinary that nobody was paying attention to. Jesus saw what nobody else did, the humble and loving gift of a poor widow. The faith and the love of a poor widow who dropped in the offering box of the temple treasury all that she had. She only had 2 little copper coins, so she dropped it, boom, boom. But Jesus took notice. Probably nobody else was paying attention to that poor woman. It's just a poor woman, a poor widow. But Jesus was paying attention. At first glance, this second part of the gospel may look as a teaching about generosity from the poor widow. It looks like a teaching about generosity. But it's really a lot deeper than that. The teachings are deeper than that. The poor widow gave all she had to live on. That's a fact. In other words, she really needed the little money she had to survive. Which begs the question, was she foolish to do that? Get rid of the little that you have? Was that a foolish and not a very prudent action from her? The answer is very clear. She obeyed the first commandment. She gave God everything she had out of love for him. She also had a strong faith that God will provide her with a solution to her needs, as he did for her ancestors in the desert while they were walking on the way to the promised land. It's a combination of loving God and having faith in God. That's the real answer. She was not foolish at all. As a matter of fact, that's the most refined of the what we call wisdom and knowledge of the law. Number 5, Jesus compared her love and faith with the self-serving pride of some of the teachers of the law and some of the Pharisees. That comparison. The poor widow obeyed the first and also the second commandment against idolatry. She didn't put first the little money she had. She put God first. Remember, the second commandment is against idolatry, and you can put money as an idol. She didn't do that. She put God first. Some of the teachers of the law were in disobedience of the 2 most important commandments. That's the comparison. There's a big difference in attitudes. We have a clear winner here. The wisest one was the poor widow. Some key concepts that we may find useful to remember. Seeking or demanding undue admiration and respect from our neighbors, who we are supposed to love and serve, is pride. It's a capital sin against the plan of God for mankind. The 2 most important commandments have been interconnected from the beginning. Love God and love your neighbor as you love yourself. A closer look to the second part of the gospel will allow us to see deeper teachings beyond a first glance teaching about charity. The poor widow was not foolish. She obeys the first commandment, giving God everything she had out of love for him. She also had a strong faith that God will provide her with a solution to her needs, as he did for her ancestors in the desert. Some teachers of the law and Pharisees were doing something wrong. They were in disobedience of the two most important commandments. The poor widow obeyed the first and also the second commandment against idolatry. She didn't put first the little money that she had. She put God. She put God first. That's a big difference. She's the big winner in this gospel. Let me ask you some questions. Review questions. First, what did the Lord saw that was wrong with some of the teachers of the law in the first part of the gospel today? How come that the second part of the gospel has a deeper teaching than just about charity, offerings, donations? Teaching about donations and offerings, as we may understand it at first glance. Why the poor widow was not foolish for giving everything she had to live on? She was not a foolish woman. She was a very wise one. And what makes the poor widow a clear and wise winner? A person that Jesus is putting us in the second part of this gospel as an example to how we should behave. Reference we're taking from the Good News Translation GNT, as usual, and from the Catechism of the Catholic Church when relevant. And this is Alejandro Burgos from El Paso, Texas. This was the gospel for this Sunday. If this mini workshop has been somehow useful to you, please give it a like and feel free to share it. And I see you next Sunday. Please don't forget,